Shocking moment, Black CEO slammed with cake at Gala, her devastating 4.2B comeback revealed. The room buzzed like a shaken bottle of soda, tense and electric, as Simone Marquette stepped onto the grand Gala stage. The shimmering lights bounced off her stunning designer gown, but it wasn't her radiant appearance that stunned the crowd. No, moments later, she stood there mouth agape, eyes wide when a massive cake, whipped cream and all, collided with her perfectly styled hair. Gasps rippled through the audience, echoing off the lavish walls. Who would dare? This was the CEO who took a $4.2 billion company from the brink of disaster to a glorious comeback. With her steely resolve, she had faced down doubters and revealed her visionary plan. But now? Now, she was covered in dessert, though the chaos masked far more than the mishap. The cake, an extravagant display meant to celebrate her success, became a twisted symbol of the stinging opposition she had confronted. The air was thick with shock. Whispers like snakes slithered through the crowd. Was it a protest? Someone dared to whisper. Eyes darted around, searching for the saboteur. Is it possible to feel sympathy and curiosity at the same time? One woman in the corner clutched her champagne flute, her knuckles white, a mix of horror and confusion painted on her face. The tension tightened in everyone's throats as they tried to reconcile this act. Why would someone go so far? The crowd leaned in, eyes bulging at the sight of Simone wiping cake from her face with trembling hands, her heated breaths quickening as she fought back humiliation. And yet, even in the outrage of the moment, there was something magnetic about her quiet strength. It was as if her resilience radiated warmth, capturing even the undecided. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moment crackled with suspense. Who had done this despicable act? People shifted in their seats, urgency washing over the room. Eyes scanned the glaring faces, questioned motives, dissected expressions. Some tilted their heads, wonder edging into their gazes. The attackers must be lurking among them, hiding in plain sight. As she straightened up, cake remnants drizzling off her chin, Simone's fierce eyes flashed with determination. This messy ordeal was not about the cake anymore. It was a battle. The question remained, would she crumble under the unexpected blow? Or would she rise up, fueled by this drama, and galvanize her audience into action? The gala took a breath, the energy palpable, anticipation hanging thick like fog. What would Simone do next? Simone took a deep breath, the taste of frosting lingering in her mouth, and she glanced over the crowd. Murmurs escalated, the thick tension almost suffocating. Excited whispers darted around, like tiny thunderbolts of gossip, amplifying the shock. Her heart pounded in time with the bass from the orchestra, and she knew she needed to act. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice cutting like glass through the buzz. Thank you for this unique welcome. A nervous chuckle escaped from the crowd, but Simone pressed on, her pride reignited. This cake is a testament to all the struggles we've overcome together. Let us not forget, just like in business, not every moment is sweet. Some are, well, messy. That hit home. Gasps floated around the room, the realization dawning that Simone was taking control. She wrapped her fingers around the microphone, steadying herself. Her flesh may have felt stung by embarrassment, but her spirit soared, igniting a fire within, but outside, shadows shifted and whispered tales of conspiracy. Was this attack a mere prank, or was there something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? A figure slinked near the entrance, concealed and sinister, eyes locked on Simone. Unbeknownst to her, this was only the beginning. Someone had orchestrated this chaos. As she continued speaking, unlocking her vision of the future and rallying her supporters, a woman in the back stirred. Cora, a longtime rival, watched with narrowed eyes, her lips drawn tight as if tasting sour defeat. For years, she had brewed resentment against Simone's rise, and tonight confirmed her fears. Simone was not someone to be easily taken down. Cora clenched her fists, plotting a counterstrike. Now, Simone turned towards the audience, the commanding presence back in her gaze. We will not let this dim our success. I promise you, this is just the appetizer. Cheers erupted, fueling her battle-hardened resolve. But amidst the applause, Simone felt a lingering chill. It clung to her skin, a reminder that this event thrummed with undercurrents of rivalry. Unseen tension simmered beneath the surface, ready to boil. As the crowd began to relax, she could sense obstacles still lurking ahead, dark and unfathomable. While camera flashes illuminated the room, a security guard scanned the venue with suspicion. He had sensed something off, an atmosphere thick with deceptive smiles and veiled agendas. His instincts screamed to check the perimeter. And so he did, unaware that danger prowled closer to the stage. In that moment, Simone caught a fleeting glimpse of the shadowy figure retreating, but she was too distracted by victory to consider it. The laughter, the music, the cheers, they all felt intoxicating. Was it the victory dance or the shadows creeping closer? Just as Simone began a powerful new narrative about resilience, a loud crack echoed through the hall. The power flickered, lights flickering ominously as everything dropped into murky darkness. The music stumbled, and a sudden scream pierced the silence, igniting panic. Stay calm. The announcer tried to shout over the chaos, but the crowd erupted in chaos. What was happening? Panic surged inside Simone, tightening her chest. In the throbbing darkness, her pulse raced faster, thoughts reeling. Would she get through this? Or was this just the beginning of an even darker plot unfolding around her? As she struggled to regain control amidst chaos, a chilling question lingered: who was behind this? And what did they want from her? The air crackled with fear, thick and suffocating. Simone squinted into the darkness, struggling to make out the silhouettes of her supporters. Panic swirled like a tempest around her, as screams pierced through the stifling silence. Instinctively, she reached for the edge of the podium, grounding herself amid the turmoil. Is everyone okay? She shouted, her voice barely cutting through the rising din. All around her, she could hear frantic footsteps and the desperate shuffling of chairs. The uncertainty wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing tighter and tighter. A sudden surge of white light burst from the emergency exits, illuminating the chaos in quick flashes. Faces were twisted in shock. A man stumbled back, colliding with a table, knocking over a glass that shattered against the floor, its sound sharp and jarring. Simone's heart pounded harder, drowning out the rumors racing through the crowd. Something was off, an undercurrent of dread washed over her. She needed to establish control and reassure her audience, but the panic felt contagious. Please. Remain calm. She called, her voice pitching higher than she intended. But the tremor echoed her own rising anxiety. As the lights flickered back on, she caught sight of Cora standing at the back, a haunting smile curving her lips, her eyes glinting with a mix of malice and satisfaction. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the hall, and a figure burst forward, silhouetted in the flickering lights. It was the security guard, an urgent look on his face as he raced toward the stage. We need to get everyone out. There's been a threat. His words sliced through the chaos, sharp and clear. A murmur spread, confusion and disbelief blending into the atmosphere. Simone's throat tightened. A threat? Her mind flashed to the shadows she had seen earlier, the figure lurking, waiting. Everyone. Please follow the exits calmly. The guard's voice was commanding, yet the crowd was still paralyzed by fear. Simone knew she had to act. It was now or never. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, raising her hands high to command attention. Listen to me. This event is important. We can't let fear take away our strength. Together, let us remain united. As her words hung in the air, she felt a flicker of hope ignite. But beneath the surface, the tension bubbled. Discontent simmered as she caught sight of Cora again, whispering to a group behind her. Simone's instincts screamed that something more awaited them. Was this chaos just a spark, or was something larger at play? A chilling thought crossed her mind. What if this wasn't an accident? What if someone had meant to plunge them into darkness? Was Cora involved? The guard returned, urgency painting his features. Simone. We need to move now. This isn't safe. Just as she prepared to follow him, the lights flickered again this time, plunging the room into unexpected darkness a second time. The sound of a door slamming echoed, followed by a muffled yelp. Someone had fallen. Who's there? Simone called, fear slicing through her confidence. The walls of the hall closed in, shadows grew longer and darker, and still, she sensed the threat lurking. Hearts raced. She clung to the moment, pushing back against her fear, yet helplessness wrapped around her like a shroud. The unexpected turned into the unthinkable. As she fumbled toward the nearest exit, feeling her pulse thundering in her ears, one question circled her mind: what awaited them on the other side? And before her anxiety could spiral further, the power died again permanently this time. A voice whispered through the murky blackness, dripping with venom. Did you really think you were safe? Simone froze. Who was in control now? The darkness was suffocating, an all-consuming void that swallowed the sounds of chaos. Simone's breath hitched in her throat, and she strained to make out any shape, any movement. Anxiety wrapped around her like a straitjacket, squeezing tighter, putting pressure on her chest. Keep moving. Follow my voice. The guard yelled, but a cold dread consumed her. The voice she heard had not belonged to him. It felt like a predator lurking just beyond the edges of her consciousness. Who are you? She whispered into the dark, heart racing. Just a friend, the voice purred. You're not going to like what happens next. A flurry of footsteps erupted around her as people struggled to make their way through the confusion, and Simone caught a glimpse of a shadow. It darted left, then right, and she lost it again. The air felt thicker, she could almost taste the fear. Suddenly, a light splashed across the room from somewhere deep in the darkness, a weak beam from a cell phone. Faces contorted in shock. Simone locked eyes with Cora again. The smile still danced on her lips, dancing into the chaos, gleeful and triumphant. Cora. Simone called, feeling a sense of urgency wash over her. What do you know about this? But Cora just shook her head, as if savoring some dark secret. The grip of suspicion tightened around Simone's gut. There was more to this, much more. Simone. The guard shouted again, urgency flooding his tone. Come on, we need to get everyone out. That snapped her back to reality. The moment she'd been avoiding settled like cement in her chest. Cora's chaos would not win tonight. With renewed determination, she exhaled slowly. This way. She shouted, directing folks toward where she thought the exits lay. But panic was a fiendish creature. It spread from one person to another like wildfire, igniting a full-blown stampede. She raised her voice again, imploring those around her to calm down, but her words barely made a dent. Get out of the way. In the mass confusion, she felt repeated impacts against her. The crowd surged, bodies pressed close, suffocating her as she resisted the tide. Her vision blurring as cries echoed around her like a twisted symphony, and then something hard connected with her shoulder, sending her sprawling into the legs of a table. With a grunt, she pulled herself up, adrenaline surging through her body. Just as she rejoined the fray, another wave of screams cut through the chaos, sharp and piercing. Someone got hurt. A woman's voice cried out nearby. Simone's heart sank. Stay with me. We need to push forward, stick together. Get away from me. A man shouted back through the hollering crowd. The rising chaos clamored around her, a cacophony of panic that made her head spin. As she forced herself through the crush of bodies, a heavy hand gripped her wrist, pulling her backward. Simone gasped, but when she turned, the grip was familiar. It was Cora, her eyes gleaming in the dimness. "Why don't we have a little fun?" Cora hissed, a glint of something unholy flashing there. Before she could reply, a flash of light exploded from the back of the room, followed by a thunderous sound and explosion. She had no time to decode what happened next. The lights came back on, flickering erratically. That's when she saw it, a silhouette on the stage, a figure dressed in all black, standing amongst an array of chaos and confusion. "Who's that?" Simone gasped. The air froze as every eye turned to the stage. The figure raised something in its hand, something glinting, sharp. "What's coming?" she shouted, heart hammering in her chest. The lurking danger had just made its presence known, and the truth was about to be unveiled. Simone squeezed her eyes shut, gathering every ounce of will to face the storm unfolding before her. Would they all make it out, or had the true nightmare just begun? Simone forced her eyes open and stared at the figure on stage, heart racing like a freight train. The crowd was a living, breathing organism of fear and confusion, and the air buzzed with tension. Narrowing her gaze, she tried to make sense of the chaos. The silhouette raised its weapon, a glint of steel catching the strobing lights. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd, unraveling threads of hysteria. "Run!" someone shouted, a voice teetering between panic and disbelief. "Cora! We need to go!" Simone yelled, but Cora just laughed, a sound tinged with madness. "Why would I leave? This is only the beginning." Her eyes sparkled with a frenzied excitement, something dark and twisted igniting inside her. Before Simone could pull free from her grasp, the figure on the stage took a step forward and shouted something, a command, a warning, or a threat. The words were swallowed by the panic that erupted. A man near the back of the hall turned and ran, trampling over others in his desperation. The tide of people surged back, but Simone stood frozen, heart pounding, a whirlpool of thoughts spiraling through her mind. "Enough playing around, Cora!" Simone yelled, but her friend only grinned wider, looking utterly unhinged. Then the figure on stage lunged forward, and suddenly, the party popped like a balloon. In a swift motion, the figure hurled the weapon into the crowd, where it struck the ground with a metallic clink, a cooking knife spinning away, gleaming ominously under the lights. Gasps erupted, and panic flooded the hall like a tsunami crashing over the shore. "Everyone, run!" shouted the guard, this time sounding less like a captain and more like a desperate man. Bodies collided as the crowd churned, surging toward the exits, desperate to escape the growing madness. But Simone wouldn't move. Something gripped her, a mixture of ice-cold fear and undeniable rage slithering through her veins. She turned to Cora. "You can't want this. Look at what's happening." For a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of doubt in Cora's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. "They're just scared. Use it, turn it to your advantage." Cora screamed, gesturing excitedly toward the chaos. "Cora, this isn't a game." But the words barely left her lips before the hammering voices of the crowd drowned her out. The lights flickered again, and in that heartbeat, a piercing shriek cut through the room like glass breaking. Someone had fallen, and the inner core of the crowd warped, weeding out the strong from the weak. Simone felt her chest tighten. She had to act. Quickly, she jerked her wrist free from Cora's grip and faced the stampede behind her. She was going to lead them to safety regardless of what Cora believed. "Over here!" she shouted, waving her arms to guide the terrified group. Simone surged forward, finding her way through the crowd, establishing resolve despite the turmoil of fear thundering in her chest, but just as she felt a flicker of hope, the lights went completely out, plunging the hall into thick black darkness. Gasps turned to screams. The air grew thick with smoke, the stench of burnt fabric swirling in. Simone stopped, that predatory voice from earlier whispering again in her mind. You thought you could escape so easily? It taunted. Simone felt the temperature drop. Cora. She screamed, but the answer came in silence. What the hell was happening? Why hadn't anyone come back to help them? Then came the sound of footsteps, without warning, closing in fast. She turned to face the unknown, heart racing as she braced herself against the encroaching danger. Stay back! She yelled, adrenaline launching her words into the abyss. The footsteps didn't pause, they grew louder, steadier. Simone squinted into the darkness, straining to perceive even the faintest hint of what was coming. Then came a low, chilling laugh, weaving through the shadows. This was just the beginning. What had she unleashed? Would she be able to confront the monster in the darkness, or would the very chaos she sought to escape consume her? The laughter echoed like nails scraping against metal, sending a shiver down Simone's spine. She could feel her breath quickening, panic clawing at her throat. The footsteps, too many to count, seemed to move closer, surrounding her in an impenetrable wall of darkness. Her mind raced, struggling to find clarity in a storm of chaos. Cora! She yelled again. Silence swallowed her words, and in that emptiness, uncertainty gnawed at her. Where was her friend? Had she vanished into the maelstrom of terrified bodies escaping the horror of the moment, or had she embraced it, becoming part of this macabre play? Simone pressed her back against the cold wall beside the exit, desperately wishing for a glimpse of light. The thick smoke clawed at her lungs, making it hard to breathe. Each cough she let out felt like a betrayal to her purpose. She had to help lead them out. But the deeper she sank into thought, the louder the footsteps became, like the growing thrum of a battleground in a coming storm. Who's there? She called, voice trembling despite her best efforts. The laughter returned, low and mocking. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, revealing a scene of terrors. Bodies pressed against one another, faces twisted in fear, some collapsed on the ground, others desperately clawing for a way out. And then, there was the figure, a hulking shadow at the front, bathed in a strange light, weapon poised, eyes glittering with wild hunger. What do you want? Simone shouted, but the figure barely moved, absorbing the fear like a feast. The crowd surged again, a swell of panic pulling her away from the wall as they cried out for safety. She fought against the tide, only to realize Cora stood still, twisted glee on her face as she watched the chaos unfold. Cora caught her gaze, and they locked eyes amidst the madness. Don't you see? They're nothing but sheep. She screamed over the cacophony. Her voice sliced through the air with a manic energy that made Simone's heart race. This is our chance. Embrace it. A hollow chill wrapped around Simone, nausea twisting in her stomach. No. We can't let this happen. She pushed against the crowd again, drawing closer to Cora, but her friend seemed anchored in place, a beacon of darkness amidst a sea of fear. Then Simone caught sight of the figure again, stepping off the stage. It was a woman, eyes dancing with an unsettling brilliance, and she was advancing into the crowd, knife glistening dangerously. The woman's expression turned toward Simone, locking her in place, and the feeling of being hunted prickled along her skin. In that instant, the chaos erupted again as the guard took command, moving to push back the intense wave of bodies and fear. Everyone! Back! Get back! He bellowed. But it was no use, the crowd was too panicked, too chaotic. A voice shouted something from the back, and as panic peaked, people began to shove harder, creating tidal waves of bodies. Simone stumbled, trying desperately to maintain her footing, when suddenly, her elbow connected with someone behind her, a stranger, and then, everything happened at once. The figure lunged toward the mass, a flash of steel slicing through the air, and Simone felt something warm splatter across her face. The world around her came crashing down as screams ripped through the hall, drowning out everything but her own thunderous heartbeat. Cora! She screamed again, wrenching herself away from the knot of bodies, but her friend was nowhere to be found. The knife had found its mark, chaos exploding in every direction. She had to escape this nightmare. As Simone searched for a way out, her heart raced not from fear alone, but from a realization she couldn't do this alone. The power had begun to shift. Was this Cora's influence? A twisted game to keep her from the truth? Or was it the darkness she had unwittingly unleashed? Every scream reminded her of the stakes, of what was truly at play. But before she could fully comprehend, the crowd surged again, and she felt pulled away, swallowed into the madness. What else lay hidden in the darkness? Could she find the light amidst the chaos, or would she be lost forever? Simone fought through the wave of bodies, each frantic push amplifying her panic. People were screaming, their faces contorted in horror. She felt the press of fear all around her, thickening the air like smoke. Moments blurred as she tried to focus on escape, but her eyes darted, searching desperately for Cora. Cora. The name burned on her lips like acid, but there was still no answer. Just terror engulfing her. Then, through the haze, she glimpsed that gleaming knife slicing through the chaos. The woman was relentless, moving with purpose, a predator amidst flight. The glimmer of the blade held a haunting beauty, reflecting the strobe lights above. It drew Simone's attention like a moth to a flame. Fear surged again, and she scanned for an exit. Reinforcements poured in, guards shouting, pushing against the tide, trying to restore order amidst the pandemonium. The crowd was a frenzy of flailing arms and stumbling legs. She was part of the mass, but she couldn't allow herself to be consumed. The figure with the knife was gaining ground, slipping through the throng of terrified patrons with a confidence that made Simone's stomach turn. She determined to break from the crowd, clenching her fists, feeling her nails dig into her palms. Suddenly, the crowd around her began to part. It was as if something had drawn everyone's attention to the right side of the room. The guards shouted louder, trying to maintain some semblance of authority, but the chaos didn't relent. It only sparked more outrage. Simone took her chance, darting to the left. As she turned, she felt a hand brush past her, and she barely caught a glimpse of Cora darting away, a manic smile plastered on her face, reveling in the uproar. "Come join me, Simone. This is what we've been waiting for," she yelled, her voice barely cutting through the din. Disbelief washed over her. This wasn't her friend. No way could Cora truly believe this was what they wanted. "I want to do this," she shouted back, her voice faltering as her resolve weakened. With each step, panic pulsed through her veins, urging her to run faster. But then, before she could escape the crowd, a sudden force knocked her off balance. A body fell beside her, gasping for breath, blood pooling beneath them. The world around Simone warped into a nightmarish tableau, as if she was the only one left feeling the crushing weight of reality. She forced herself to look up. The knife-wielding woman was right in front of her now, eyes fixed, cold and calculating, tracking Simone's every move. The chaos seemed to evaporate around them, leaving only her and the hunter. "Why fight what you cannot control?" the woman hissed, voice dripping with dark amusement. "Join them. Join us." Simone's heart raced. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to hide. "No!" she shouted, but the words were lost in the rush of adrenaline. The woman lunged, and Simone sidestepped just in time, adrenaline fueling her escape. She saw an exit, a fragile shaft of light leading to safety, and like a moth towards a flame, she sprinted forward, the sound of pounding feet echoing in her ears. But the laughter followed her, glistening like shards of glass in the dark. Will she make it out alive? Or is the darkness surrounding them all simply a reflection of the chaos within her friend? The door stood ajar, beckoning. Just a few more steps. What awaited her on the other side? Would the light embrace her, or were shadows lurking just beyond? Simone burst through the door, crashing into the cool air outside like a dam breaking. Her lungs fought against the fog of panic, greedily gulping in the crisp night. But there was no relief. The moment she escaped the heat of the chaos, she realized the darkness out here was just as chilling. She stumbled away from the entrance, disoriented, her heart thudding painfully against her ribs. The sounds of terror still echoed from inside: screams, laughter, chaos. She turned, desperate to scan through the glass walls, to spy that glinting knife amidst the shadow. The laughter faded briefly, replaced by a sobering thought: Cora was still in there. Cora, the name felt hollow now, a jagged stone lodged in her throat. It wasn't just her friend moving through that madness, it was something more malignant, something that had captured Cora's heart. A sudden roar from within pulled her focus back. It felt like a vortex, pulling her deeper into the storm of insanity. No! She clenched her fists, fighting the urge to rush back in. Her mind flickered to the last moment betwixt them. The madness hadn't merely engulfed Cora, it had transformed her, twisted her into something unrecognizable. Stop! A voice jolted her from her spiraling thoughts. She spun around and faced a tall man, his face framed by the harsh glow of a streetlight. His eyes were wide, adrenaline etched into every feature. You shouldn't be out here alone. We need to get out of here. Out of where? Is the danger gone? Simone asked, panic creeping back in. My friend Cora, she's still inside. The man shook his head, urgency spilling from his voice. You don't get it. It will come for you next. We have to leave. Now. Before she could argue, he grabbed her hand, pulling her towards an alley that flanked the outrageous Gala. The darkness seemed to thicken there, shadows pooling like liquid dread. Simone wrestled to break free. We can't just abandon everyone. What if they need help? Believe me, you can't save them. He breathed heavily, urgency etched across his face. They don't want to be saved. They've chosen this. As he pulled her deeper into the alley, dread twisted in her gut. Her eyes darted back toward the Gala, now just a chaotic strobe light painting ghostly shadows. It felt like a siren, alluring, but deadly. The guards, she protested. They're supposed to help. Those guards don't know what they're up against. They're as lost as the crowd. He halted, gripping her shoulders firmly. Trust me. You don't know what they're becoming. Her heart dropped, fear clamoring around her mind like a caged beast. What had Cora chosen? What had they all chosen in the face of terror? Bright flashes erupted again from the Gala, illuminating the alley, and she caught a glimpse of the woman, the knife glistening ominously. Another scream punctuated the night, sending an electric shock through Simone. Let us go. Her instincts screamed at her to flee. She snapped her gaze back to the man, desperation rising. But we can't just leave everyone to die. A hollow laugh echoed from the direction of the open door. Dying? Oh, they're just awakening. Panic burned in Simone's chest. If she didn't act now, would she lose Cora entirely? She yanked her hand from the man's grip and ran towards the sound. The unknown hung thick in the air, the shadows beckoning her back to confront the truth and face whatever it meant, but the darkness oozed agony. Would she retreat or confront the nightmare? Her heart thundered, every step sent quakes of dread through her body as she approached the entrance. Would she find Cora as she was, or something far worse? The light flickered, then went dark. And just beyond that door, everything changed. What awaited her now? Simone gripped the cold metal of the doorknob, her breath caught in her throat. She hesitated for only a moment before she flung the door open, plunging back into the chaos that had gripped her friend. The sounds of madness enveloped her like a heavy shroud, the screams, the maniacal laughter, and a pulse of music that seemed to stir entire currents of dread in the air. The moment she stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. It was stifling. A bubbling sense of euphoria mixed with raw fear washed over her, palpable and electric. Shadows danced across the walls, twisted figures celebrating their descent into madness. Simone's heart raced as she scanned the room, searching for Cora, hoping to find her friend amongst the horrors that had taken hold. Cora. Her voice sliced through the cacophony, laced with desperation. A figure twisted in delight, the blade of a wicked-looking knife catching the fading light. It wasn't Cora, but another guest, their red-stained smile gleaming as if they had tasted something delightful. The sight sent cold shivers racing down her spine. What had turned them? Her eyes darted around, searching for any familiar face. Panic surged when she imagined the possibilities of what could have happened to Cora. The laughter crescendoed, tearing at her sanity. Cora! She screamed again, louder this time, forcing her way deeper into the fray. Embrace it! Someone shouted, their voice manic yet euphoric. Join us! A wave of cheers surged through the crowd. The drunken revelry was terrifying, a fever dream woven from laughter and the promise of something darker lurking beneath. It was a world gone mad, and somewhere inside, Cora was ahead of her. But the crowd was alive, shifting like a living organism, and Simone was just another puzzle piece in their destructive game. Then she saw her, a figure draped in shadows, illuminated only by erratic bursts of neon light. Cora stood on a makeshift pedestal, eyes ablaze with a fervor that made Simone's heart sink. Gone was the girl she knew, this was someone else entirely. Simone! Cora called with delight, her voice laced with a joyful madness. You have to join us. No! Simone cried out, breaking free from the throng as she rushed forward. This isn't who you are, Cora. You have to come back. Back? Why go back when freedom is here? Cora's laughter rang euphorically, an intoxicating call to arms that echoed through the madness. The crowd responded, howling their approval, swaying like puppets on invisible strings. Simone felt a deep choking fear threatening to consume her. The energy of that room felt alive, electric, and dangerous. She pushed against the tide, arms flailing as she fought her way to Cora. Each step felt heavier as voices whispered around her. Let go, they said. You're safe here. Cora! She screamed, desperation overwhelming her senses. She reached her friend as the cheers intensified, the vibrant chaos wrapping around them both. For an instant, Cora's gaze turned serious, her laughter fading. You don't understand, she whispered, leaning close to Simone, her breath hot and inviting. I've found something here. It's so much better than what we were. As she spoke, a horrific realization swept through Simone. There was no saving Cora, she was losing her, unraveling into the very fabric of this madness. Please. Simone begged, shaking her shoulders. We need to leave. You're in danger. A slow smile crept across Cora's face, dark and intoxicating. Danger? Or liberation? In that moment, Simone understood. It wasn't about saving Cora anymore, it was about pulling her back from a brink neither of them could fully see. But as a deafening roar erupted and the sinister energy surged once more, she knew that whatever dark fascination had taken hold of Cora, time was running out. Just then, the strobe lights flickered dangerously, and in one surreal pulse, the music died, plunging them into an unsettling silence. Silence before a storm. She stood frozen, heart racing, as the thrill of the crowd turned to something sinister, anticipation crackling in the air. What would happen next in this awoken nightmare? Out of the silence came the echo of a knife striking flesh, and in that moment, Simone understood her choice, flee or fight. But a greater fear clawed at her mind. What if she was not merely fighting for Cora, but for her very soul? Simone's heart felt like it was stuck in her throat. The deafening silence soaked through the revelry, feeding on fear like a blood-sucking parasite, and for that brief second, she saw everything sharpen into focus. Cora's eyes flickered with something wild, something uncaring, and that glimmer of the friend she had cradled in her heart faded beneath layers of something insidious. No! Simone shouted, desperation veiling her voice as she lunged for her friend. The throng and laughter seemed to suspend, widening as if giving her space, but Cora only scoffed, tilting her head like a feral animal. This is where the fun begins, Simone. But then came the scream, a piercing, chilling sound that snapped through the air like the crack of a whip. The crowd rippled with shock. They lost their footing for a moment, faces warped with fear and anticipation. Simone turned in horror. The figure with the knife loomed, pulling from the shadows. It was no longer a dancer in the dark, but a predator, poised and ready. Panic surged. Every instinct screamed at Simone to run, yet she couldn't just abandon Cora. Not now. Cora, you have to listen to me. This isn't freedom. She reached out, fingers brushing against Cora's arm. But Cora's smile twisted into something more sinister. You don't get it. It's inviting. Just let go. A scuffle behind them drew Simone's eye, and she saw someone fall, blood pooling like a burst of paint across bright tiles. The joy turned to horror, and the crowd resisted, pushing forward and backward, but the drunken euphoria had transformed into something dark and hostile. They were no longer one intertwined mass, they were splintering, and in that fracture, chaos would reign. This was real. Simone couldn't let this become another horror story. She fought through the confusion, heart heavy in her chest. There was no turning back now. With passion igniting within her, she yelled, "No more. We can save ourselves without this madness." Seconds stretched into infinity as Cora faltered, just a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. In that moment, Simone seized the opportunity. "Cora. Remember us? Remember who we were." For a heartbeat, Cora's facade cracked. There it was, the glimmer of the girl who once laughed under the stars, who dreamed of a future, who was once her friend. Then, a sinister laugh echoed from the shadows, and the knife-wielding figure surged forward. "Get away from her." Simone's voice roared, filled with determination. She tackled Cora hard enough to break the spell of intoxication that had wrapped around her. They stumbled back together, landing hard on the ground, locked in a struggle. The crowd surged like a tidal wave around them. Simone breathed heavily, feeling the tension wrapped around them like a stifling blanket. Cora blinked, confusion flickering in her gaze. The madness of the night hung through the air like smoke, but amidst that chaos, a sliver of clarity struck her. "Simone," Cora breathed, almost a whisper. "What have we done?" But even as her friend's internal struggle played out, the danger remained. The figure was closing in, madness etched across its face, eyes wide with malicious delight. "Run!" Simone shouted, pulling Cora to her feet, breaking free from the throng, but not without disorienting panic. They became small figures trying to reclaim sanity in a world turned upside down. Behind them, the laughter morphed into screams as the blade struck again. Another life extinguished, shattered by those twisted dreams. Simone felt the weight of desperation claw at her insides. "Just stay close." She dragged Cora, leading the way to the exit she had seen earlier. The path before them morphed with every step, ripples of uncertainty threatening it all. As they neared the door, the blast of cool night air washed over them like an embrace. Freedom was just ahead. They rushed towards it, but Cora hesitated, looking back as if tethered to the chaos. "We can't leave them," she shouted, eyes wide. But Simone shook her head vehemently. "We can't help them if we don't survive. You have to trust me." Finally, she felt the warmth of Cora's hand clasp her own, squeezing tightly. They were two allies against a rising tide. Together, they burst through the door, crashing into the night outside, the cool air burning their lungs. "Keep running," Simone urged, feeling the echoes of chaos behind them start to fade into the night. But the dangers had not vanished. Though they escaped the immediate chaos, fear tightened around their hearts. They could still hear the remnants of madness in the air, cries of anguish echoing like whispers in the wind. They slowed, voices shaking, breaths ragged, lost in the midst of shadows and secrets that felt impossible to unlock. I don't know who I am anymore." Cora's voice cracked, raw from the depth of her internal turmoil. Simone squeezed her hand tighter. "You're you, Cora. Remember that. But we have to choose to be stronger than what we faced tonight. We can't let it consume us. She watched as Cora's eyes softened, vulnerability creeping back in. The darkness would not win. It never would. In the distance, sirens echoed, lights flashing like beacons. They turned to see the hall engulfed in an otherworldly glow, but hope sparked inside Simone's chest. This was only the beginning. Together, they could rebuild. They could fight against the moments that tried to reclaim them. "Let us go home," Simone said, voice steadying as they stepped away from the specter of the night they had escaped. And as they walked away, she knew they had broken the spell, they had chosen to reclaim their lives. Each step forward would be their comeback, their way to rise above the darkness that had sought to drown them, and with that choice bubbling inside them, they had finally found the light they were chasing. Now, what awaited them tomorrow was entirely up to them. You need to subscribe now to stay on this journey and not miss any of the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to keep this channel thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this insane conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finale. Your support makes all the difference. Show you're one of the true fans today.